Well, good morning and welcome back to the shop. Today I thought I'd give you a shop update of everything that is going on in the shop. So we'll start. Many of you may be wondering about the 430, and as my lovely assistant pans around and takes a look, as you can see, the 430 is pretty much the way we left it after we had split it, but I do have some updates here. I do have some of the parts in, and I'll show you what we have purchased so far to get the 430 back together. What we've got here is we've got the PTO drive gear, and I had some issues finding this seal. This seal goes right here, and it actually seals the input shaft for the transmission. This seal was no longer available from Deere, so I got on eBay and sourced it by size, so that worked out very well. So we've got that seal, and I have a confession to make on this seal right here. I said that this seal was no longer available from Deere. I'm not sure where I did with the old one, but that was entirely mistaken because, for one thing, I had the part number transposed wrong in my head, even though I had written it down correctly. So after calling my local dealership and telling him that I wanted an AM3472T, after 2 days, I went back to the parts book, and it's an AM3572T. So, once again, double check your numbers before you call, but I was able to come up with that seal. We needed to put in a new needle bearing in the front. Got a spring that goes between the input shafts of the on the input shaft, between the two shafts on the actual transmission drive, and I picked up some new seal rings for the suction on the hydraulic system. So we are, well, there's that seal I was looking for right there. That's what this one takes place of. So anyway, we're getting parts gathered up for that. I did do a little bit of repair work on my transmission shift lever. Still need to order a shift boot. I think I'll go ahead and order the correct shift knob for this. This is actually the earlier style that came on this tractor when I got it. So we've got the parts, we just need to get back to it. So I'll show you what else we're working on. Another project we're working on in the shop is this 1923 McCormick Deere 6 horsepower Type M engine. As you can see, we've got the mixer off of it. We'll go over to the bench in a minute to take a look at that. As you can see, we have a new magneto here. Got this from Mark's Magnetos in Colchester, Connecticut. And I have had this engine running. I've got about 5 minutes of run time on it, but the mixer was having a difficult time drawing the fuel up. So I went ahead and ordered some parts for it, and I'll show you those on the bench. As you can see here, we've got the mixer off of the 6 horse Type M engine, and this is a 3 needle valve mixer. This would be the starting valve where you would fill this chamber full of gasoline to start the engine. This would be the kerosene valve. After you've warmed your engine up on gasoline, you could switch over to kerosene and run the engine on a lower grade of fuel. And right here in the middle, where this valve is if your engine started knocking or pre-detonating on the kerosene, you could actually feed a little bit of water in to the charge and cool the charge enough to stop the pre-ignition on the kerosene. So as you can see, it's pretty nasty, but what we're in the middle of doing right now is we're changing these nozzles. These siphon tubes is what I believe they're called. And as you can see right here in the mixer, these are made of pot metal. So unfortunately, as most of you know, pot metal is a dissimilar metal. These nuts are brass. These are pot metal. Of course, the mixer body is cast iron. So instead of coming out one piece, they tend to just break and shatter, and you can see kind of the condition that the siphon tubes are in. Admittedly, I did have this running on the gasoline side, but I want the customer to have the best opportunity to not have any problems. So what we're doing and what I've ordered is some parts from our friends at Starbolt. This is a new water feed to take the place of the one with the broken knob on it. This is a new Venturi ring, and I have the pieces of the old one. Of course, it's made out of pot metal, and that's the way it's going to come out. That's the way that these siphon tubes are going to come out too, but it drops right here in the middle. I am going to go ahead and cut an appropriate taper in this. The aftermarket ones don't come with any type of taper in the Venturi, and I just like to add that. So we're going to do that, but I'm going to show you how difficult it is to get this pot metal to move once it's been in here for 80 or 90 years. So we're gonna kind of gingerly clamp that in, and you can already hear it cracking, and you can see it is already shattered. So generally what you'll have to do is I'm going to work this back and forth, and there's the rest of the siphon tube, and you can see how eaten up it is on the bottom. I might show you the new ones. These new ones are made out of brass, and of course what this nut does right here is it fits over the top. It forces this back against the Venturi and holds it in there in place. So we'll go ahead and get this nut out. I'm going to just work it back and forth. It's brass, so it shouldn't adhere to the cast iron. I'm going to attempt to bead blast the inside of this mixer while trying to save as much of the paint on the outside. We don't really want to do any more touch up to the engine as it already is. It's an older restoration, but so you can see that the pot metal is fused pretty well in to the nut. So I have the other nut set up over in the mill, and I'll show you kind of the steps that I take to try to get this out. You can take a sharp pointed chisel, which is what I did on the Venturi, and you can knock that out, but being this is in a recessed hole, I found it easier to take a smaller end mill. This large diameter on the siphon tube is about 7/16 of an inch, and I've got a 3/8. I've got an older high-speed steel 3/8 end mill in here, and I'm going to whittle away at the pot metal. So I'm going to start the phase converter, and then we'll open up here, and I'm just going to feed down. I've already done this partially. I'm going to, there. I think I got right to the end of it. I saw some chunks coming out. So we'll shut this off. That little spot right there is where I tried to start that with a sharp pointed chisel. But as you can see, I believe we're down to the brass. So we'll clean that hole up, and I'll show you how this fits on the end of the new siphon tube. So this brass nut will fit over the end of this siphon tube right there, and as you tighten this in, this will force it into the back. This will force it into the back of the venturi tube right there. Now I still have a piece of the old siphon tube stuck in here, and so I will take a drill bit and I will work through this way to get some of that out. But the new siphon tube will fit in here just like that. So that's what we've got to do with the mixers. And so I also have a new fuel tank on its way from John Wannett, and he has been very good to work with, and it's on its way. After I had ran that engine the first 5 minutes, I came back after the engine was shut off, and of course I was just running it off of fuel in the mixer, and there was a puddle of stale gasoline under the engine. When I got the fuel tank out, it was full of sludge and rust, so it was time for a new fuel tank. So hopefully we get the mixer done, we'll get the fuel tank installed, and that 6-horse will be ready to go back to its owner. And I'll show you one more project we're working on. Some of you may remember this tractor from a previous video I did. This is a tractor that I picked up for my son, and he still hasn't received it yet because I'm still working on it. It may look like it's in complete condition right now, but as you can see, there's something missing. And then what's missing is the middle section of the tractor, which houses the torque amplifier. So what I have here on the transmission jack is the housing for the torque amplifier. And after I serviced this tractor, I found out something that was rather unfortunate, something that I certainly hadn't counted on. But as I serviced the tractor, I was filling up the transmission and the differential with fluid, and I was about 1.5 gallons low, and I had ran out of fluid, and I thought, well, I've got enough in it to start and to see. I had already filled the hydraulic system up. When I started this tractor, fluid came pouring out of these weep holes in the bottom of this housing. Now where these weep holes are, they're where the torque amplifier clutch and pressure plate assembly rides in this housing. There is high trans fluid on this side of the torque amplifier clutch. There's also high trans fluid on this side. There's a passage that actually runs around the outside here, and so this cavity is surrounded by high trans. So I got out the service manual and finally discovered that I have a seal here on the front of the planetaries. I have 2 seals here on either side of the PTO drive, and then there was 1 seal in the nose of the planetary gear. And so the fluid had to be coming from one of them. So last week I got busy, took this out, and we did discover that the front seal on the PTO drive, the rear seal on the PTO drive, which would be the one that is in this dividing wall between the PTO and the torque amplifier clutch, this seal was totally gone. All that was left of it was the steel spring that was riding around on the shaft. So we've got those seals ordered. I'll show you those over on the bench, but as you can expect when you tear down a 65, 66-year-old tractor, there's always more to do than you expect. One of the things that we had to repair is these three mounting holes in the bottom of the clutch bell housing had very little threads left in them. These were 5/8, 11 coarse threaded bolts that went in here. And so I thought whether to insert them. I didn't really want to use a helicoil in an open hole like that. So what I did, I talked to a friend of mine, and he suggested going up one size, and we went to a 3/4 16 SAE threaded bolt. And I'll show you a still picture. I put this up in the table on the Cincinnati Bickford radial arm drill press. I centered up on the holes, and I rebored and retapped these to 3/8 16. But along the way we found out we had some more issues to deal with this front axle rear support. I'll show you that. So we got the threaded holes repaired. This is the rear axle, or the front axle rear support. As we were disassembling it, discovered the pivot ball, the threaded portion with the nut, was broken off. And the other thing that we discovered was this bracket that holds this ball was broken half in two. So I was able to V this out here, and I V'd it out all the way to the point where we just barely had a reference line to line up the socket. And I clamped it back onto this and braced this back together. And I have a new ball coming, and I'm going to wait to finish this brass out until I get the new ball. But you never know what you're going to run into when you start in on one of these tractors. This is the throwout bearing for the torque amplifier clutch. I do have one of those coming, but I'll show you the seals. This is actually the planetary unit for the torque amplifier, and so I've got 4 seals here. I was able to procure all of these using the international part numbers off of eBay. So that worked out very well. I was glad to be able to do that. And it wasn't super expensive. But this is the seal that rides on the front nose of the planetary right here. It will have a bearing, a support bearing that goes right behind this that holds this in, and then this is where the planetary bolts into the back of the case. So we've got that seal to put in. This is the seal that is actually in the nose, and I haven't removed the old one yet, but this is the seal that is going to go right here in the nose of the planetary. And then these are the seals that I believe was actually the problem as far as getting fluid into the torque amplifier cavity. And these are the seals that surround the PTO drive, and this is where this one was going to fit right here. I do have some pitting right there, but right where the seal drives or the seal rides, I think it's okay. So we're going to run with it. I'm not going to go to the expense of taking that down and probably building that up with spray weld or anything. I'm going to give it a shot and see how it goes. This is accessible from in front of the or on the clutch side of the torque amplifier. So if there is an issue and we get further into this tractor at some other point, we'll all be able to take care of it then if it's not satisfactory. So we've got a stack of seals here, and as you can see, we have a ton of work going on in the shop. So that's what we're doing. We're going to film as we can, but I have a lot of stuff here that needs to get out of the shop, so we're going to be concentrating on that. So I thought I'd give you all an update. Appreciate you watching. If you would, like and subscribe and help us grow the channel, and we appreciate you watching. We'll see you later.